The laughter cut through the winter air like a careless blade, echoing off the polished stone of the concert hall steps, where donors arrived in tailored coats and polished shoes. It was a kind of laughter that assumed safety, that never expected consequences. A little girl stood there holding a violin case held together by tape, her shoes thin, her fingers red from the cold. When the man's words fell from his mouth, half joking, half dismissive, they landed heavier than he realized, because some moments are not meant to be laughed through. Some moments are meant to change you forever. The man was Jonathan Reed, a self-made millionaire known across the United States for his sharp mind and sharper tongue. He had built an empire in technology, donated to the arts generously, and believed deeply in merit, hard-earned success, measurable talent, visible results. He was also a Christian, at least by habit, though faith had long ago become something tidy and distant in his life, folded neatly between meetings and charity galas. Children were causes to be supported from afar, not lives to be tangled with. The girl's name was Grace Miller, and she was 9 years old. She had been living in the foster system for nearly 3 years, moving from place to place with her violin as the only thing that stayed. Her mother had died quietly after a long illness, and her father had disappeared long before that. Music was not a dream for Grace. It was a lifeline. When words failed her, strings spoke. When nights were loud with unfamiliar houses and unfamiliar rules, melodies wrapped around her like prayer. If you believe in the kindness, quest, and second chances, in moments where compassion rewrites destiny, take a moment now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who still believes in goodness, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. That evening, the concert hall was hosting a fundraiser for youth music programs. Grace had been invited by a small nonprofit that noticed her talent during a community outreach event. She wasn't scheduled to perform inside. She wasn't important enough for that. She was only there early, practicing quietly on the steps while waiting for a ride, letting the cold sharpen her focus. Jonathan noticed her because she didn't fit. Everything about the event was curated, except her. When he paused, amused by the contrast, his words came easily, thoughtlessly. He gestured toward her violin with a smile that expected laughter from those around him, offering a challenge dressed up as generosity. "Play and I'll adopt you." To him, it was a harmless joke, a way to feel benevolent without being vulnerable. Grace didn't smile. She didn't cry either. She simply nodded. She opened the case carefully, as if the world might shatter if she moved too fast. The violin had been repaired so many times it carried scars like a map of where it had been. She lifted it to her shoulder, closed her eyes, and took a breath so deep it looked like she was steadying her entire life. The first note silenced the laughter. What followed was not showy or loud. It was controlled, aching, and honest. Grace played as if the cold didn't exist, as if the noise of the city had faded, as if the steps beneath her were a cathedral floor. Her music carried grief without bitterness, hope without naivete. Each phrase felt lived in, like a story told by someone far older than 9. Jonathan felt something tighten in his chest. He told himself it was surprise, then curiosity, then simple appreciation. But as the music continued, those excuses fell apart. The melody pulled him somewhere he had avoided for years, to the quiet room where his own childhood lived, where his mother used to play hymns on an old piano, where faith was simple and love was not measured by outcomes. People stopped walking. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the city seemed to pause. Grace's fingers moved with precision shaped by necessity, not privilege. She wasn't performing to impress. She was speaking. When the final note faded, the silence lasted longer than applause ever could. Jonathan didn't clap right away. He couldn't. His mouth was dry, his eyes stung, and for the first time in a very long while he felt ashamed, not the public kind, but the private kind that rearranges something deep inside you. Grace lowered the violin gently. She didn't look at Jonathan for approval. She looked down, as if bracing for whatever came next. The fundraiser continued as planned, but something had shifted. Jonathan sat through performances inside the hall, without hearing them. His thoughts circled back to the girl on the steps, to the way her music had stripped him of cleverness and left him exposed. He had made promises before, donations, pledges, checks ring with ease. This felt different. This felt like a reckoning. Over the next few days, Jonathan asked questions he had never bothered to ask. He learned about Grace's foster history, about the nonprofit struggling to keep its doors open, about the way talent so often withered without support. He learned how many children like her disappeared quietly between systems designed to help them. Grace returned to her foster home that night, unchanged on the outside, but something inside her felt steadier. She had played. She had been heard. For a child whose life had been decided by adults who rarely listened, that mattered more than applause. Weeks passed. Winter deepened. Jonathan found himself attending church again, not for appearances, but because the music reminded him of Grace. He prayed clumsily, honestly, asking questions he didn't expect answers to. What did responsibility really mean? What did love require when it couldn't be written off as charity? Change didn't come in one dramatic gesture. It came in choices. Jonathan funded the nonprofit fully, quietly. He arranged for Grace to receive formal training, not as a favor, but as an investment in her future. He attended her small recitals, sitting in the back, listening more than watching. And then came the hardest decision of his life. Adoption was not a joke anymore. It was paperwork, background checks, home studies, long conversations with social workers, and longer conversations with himself. He wrestled with fear. Fear of failing her. Fear of disrupting her life. Fear of discovering that love demanded more than intention. Grace approached each visit cautiously. Adults had promised things before. Music had taught her to wait, to listen for truth between the notes. Jonathan never pressured her. He showed up, again and again. Slowly, trust grew. The day Grace walked into Jonathan's home for the first time, violin in hand, the space felt different, less like a museum of success, and more like a place where life could actually happen. She practiced in the afternoons, filling rooms that had been silent for years. Jonathan learned to cook simple meals, learn how to sit through school meetings, learn how to pray out loud again without embarrassment. He also learned humility. Grace's music continued to grow, but so did her laughter, her curiosity, her sense of safety. She still carried grief, but it no longer walked alone. Jonathan discovered that adoption didn't save Grace. It saved him from the person he had become, clever, generous, and empty. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can begin as a mistake and still become a miracle, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can be told. Before the ending, we have a special request. Comment below and share what the story made you feel, or write the word music if you believe it has the power to heal hearts. Years later, when Grace stood on a real stage, under real lights, playing to an audience that had come to listen, Jonathan sat in the front row, no longer speechless, but grateful beyond words. He had mocked without meaning to harm, and been answered with grace he didn't deserve. And in that exchange, between a careless joke and a child's courage, both of their lives found new melody, one written not in wealth or talent alone, but in love that finally learned how to listen.